Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTGO Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is the Guilds of Ravnica Set review for Red. I'm not really wearing a red shirt today, it's more of a green shirt, but I think that'll be perfectly fine for this set review. First up, we've got Arclight Phoenix. This is a 4-mana 3/2 mythic. It has flying and haste, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast 3 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn, return Arclight Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this feels to me more like a commander and a draft and sealed card only. Phoenixes are kind of a card, or a creature type that's kind of always in every single Magic set, and they're always really at the mythic slots most of the time, and some of them are just really terrible. Like Rekindling Phoenix was amazing, Arclight Phoenix here, not so much. But in Draft and Sealed, this is a card that'll just keep coming back if you have lots of instant and sorcery spells to cast. Keep in mind though, in Draft and in Sealed, you may only have like 7 instant and sorcery spells in your entire deck, so this is probably just a 4-mana 3/2 in that format with flying and haste, and that's probably good enough as far as being a draft and haste card. Probably not a first pickable rare, but it's probably fine. In Commander though, this seems like a lot of fun, especially if you have a full grip of cards in an Izzet deck. And this might be brewed around in a weird deck in Standard, just for fun, as far as the Phoenix deck goes. Because you have quite a few Phoenixes now within the Standard format. So not that wild about this card. Really kind of sad that it's a mythic. I wish it was not. Because I feel like something else could go here that was a bit more powerful. Moving up here, we've got Barging Sargent, a 5-mana 4/2 Minotaur, a soldier with haste, mentor. It's also a common. This is fine. It's not amazing. In the previous season, I kind of had a big beef with Mentor, thinking it wasn't that great. In Draft and Sealed, this card is very good. A 5-mana 4/2 is going to trade with basically anything, but it's also going to get you a Mentor trigger as it attacks in if something else is attacking with it. So, if you guys don't know, whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. So, very interesting for us. This is the Boros mechanic. Really like it for Barging Sargent here. It's going to trade with something basically immediately, or just die to a 2-point burn spell of some sort. I'm not sure that's really going to happen though in Draft and Sealed that much. It's probably just going to trade with something before 4 toughness there, which is nice. This is probably a card that's not going to see any kind of Standard play, but might see some Commander play in some weird Minotaur deck, right? We've got Book Devour here, a 6-mana 4/5 beast uncommon with trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard all cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. Very interesting card for Drafted and Sealed. I really do like the ability here, especially with trample on top of this, because it's still going to do combat damage to a player technically if they do block with something, and it's still damage still gets through, which is very good, especially with cards like Sure Strike in the format for Draft and Sealed. Also, the art in this card, amazing. Love this art. Kev Walker, you have outdone yourself this time. But for Draft and Sealed, seriously, this is an amazing card. Able to, if you have like a fistful of lands in the mid to late game, you can just throw those away and draw new cards with this. Very useful. Very fun card for Commander as well. Not so sure about this seeing Standard play, just a little bit too slow as far as being 6 mana for 4/5. But it is super fun, and you never know, might be a brew around deck for Standard somewhere. Moving on here, we've got Command the Storm, a 5-mana common. This is an instant. Command the Storm deals 5 damage to target creature. Removals is always going to be highly picked in Draft and Sealed, and this is one of those pieces here. So you're always going to pick into this in Draft and in Sealed. Not going to see any kind of play elsewhere, but hey, the art is at least nice, right? Just a little too expensive for any other format. But being a 5-mana instant speed burn spell on a creature is pretty decent for Draft and in Sealed. Is it Cosmotronic? Is that how you pronounce that? Cosmotronic Weight, a 4-mana common sorcery, deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Creatures your opponents control can't block this turn. So, in a Boros deck, in a Rakdos style deck, in any other kind of deck, Izzet deck perhaps, in Drafted and Sealed, this is a card that's going to win you the game. Either it's going to wipe your opponent's entire board if they have a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, or it just makes all your opponent's creatures not able to block that turn, and that might just be enough to turn the tide in your match. This is a great card to close out a match. I really like this. Maybe 1 or 2 of in your Draft and Sealed pool if you get into it. It's also a common, so you're going to see it quite a bit. As far as just seeing any kind of play elsewhere, not going to see any kind of play in Standard or Commander or elsewhere. Just a bit too expensive for those formats. Moving on, we've got Direct Current, a 3-mana common sorcery, deals 2 damage to any target, and Jumpstart. So Jumpstart, of course, is you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost, then exile this card. How the mighty have fallen. This is just a terrible card all around. A 3 mana 2 points of damage to any target is sort of terrible, and an extra 2 points if you jumpstart. That's 6 mana for 4 points of damage. This is just bad. I don't really know where else to put this other than just like, if you get into this in Draft and Sealed, it's going to be like your last instant and sorcery card in your deck. Like, you know, your 23rd, 24th pick. This is a card you don't want to run in Standard. This is a card you don't really want to run anywhere, really. It's just a bad card. And I'm going to feel bad if you get into it for your Draft and Sealed lists here. Moving up, we've got Electrostatic Field, a 2-mana 0/4 wall uncommon. This has got Defender, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Really like this for Draft and Sealed. It's a great wall. A 2-mana 0/4 Defender, pretty good. But a 2-mana 0/4 Defender that deals points of damage to your opponent if you just cast stuff, that's very good. I also think this is a card that people will probably want to kitchen table brew around in Standard, and there's kind of a whole lineage of these type of cards that you could use in Modern or Commander as well. So very fun card, a nice draft pick for you, especially if you're in a red Izzet deck where you have a lot of spells to kind of take advantage of. This is definitely the card you want in that deck list. Moving up, we've got Erratic Cyclops, a 4-mana rare 0/8 Cyclops Shaman. It has trample, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Erratic Cyclops gives +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. How the mighty have fallen. This is not the Cyclops of old, where you could just cast instant and sorceries and give it +3/+0. This is definitely not that. It does have 8 toughness though, so it's able to block basically anything in the format, which is kind of crazy. But if you are willing to get into this in Draft and Sealed, you can be rewarded by having a 4/8 kind of attacking you with trample, which is nice for just 4 mana. In Draft, or as far as Standard goes, I don't think this will see any kind of play. It's just kind of a hard card to work around. Maybe though, you never know. As far as this being a card in Commander, it feels like a Commander card through and through, as far as a card you just want to dump a lot of instant sorcery spells on the battlefield before you like attack with this guy. That could be a thing for sure. I just wish it was like, instant sorcery trigger, not like the converted mana cost of that spell, because casting a lot of small mana spells is more, usually more in line with what you want to do rather than casting, a big converted mana cost spell. However, in Draft and in Sealed, things like Sure Strike exist, things like pump spells exist. This could be a fun card to pump and then also get an extra pump because of the spell itself. So if it's +3/+0, it might get +4/+0, which is not bad. So I think in Draft and Sealed it's probably okay, but anywhere else, probably not. Moving up here, we've got Experimental Frenzy, a 4-mana rare enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. You can't play cards from your hand, and you can pay for and destroy Experimental Frenzy. Well, this is interesting. Definitely a casual Commander card. Definitely a card that you might not want to get into in Drafted and Sealed unless you're just out of cards in hand and this is what you drew into. But this is probably a card that's not that aggressive, not that kind of leading you forward. If you're ahead or behind in the match, this doesn't really help you either way that much, honestly. But I do think it's really fun as far as a Commander staple for sure. Moving up here, we've got Fearless Halberdier? I don't know. Halberdier? I don't know. It's a 3-mana 3/2 vanilla human warrior. Sorry, not soldier. Human warrior. This is fine. You're probably going to slot this as a 14th or 15th pick in your creature slot in red. Very useful. Going to trade with something above it probably. The 3 power there is really useful. But having no kind of ability on top of this makes it a card that you kind of don't want to put into your deck unless you just don't have any other slots, or you need more creatures for sure. Then the Fearless here is going to definitely go into that deck. But yeah, not any Commander play, or not any Commander play, not any Modern play or Standard play. Moving up, we've got Fire Urchin, a 2-mana common 1/3 elemental with trample. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, the Fire Urchin gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So this is similar to the Cyclops, and then it pumps if you just cast instant and sorcery spells. But keep in mind, again, instant and sorcery spells are kind of hard to do in Draft and Sealed, so this is a card that's kind of built for that format, but really is going to struggle being able to get a lot of triggers on top of it. But getting in for 3 or 4 points of damage if you can is quite good with this card, especially if you have pump spells on top of it. So it could be quite powerful there. With 3 toughness on top of it, it's probably going to be a card that's going to trade with something really powerful against it. So that's really nice in Draft and Sealed. And I might want to be brewing around this with a deck in Standard as well. So kind of fun for that. Also, the art in this is quite cool. Moving up, we've got Goblin Banner Rat. This is a 1-mana 1/1 Goblin Soldier with Uncommon with Mentor. You can pay 2 and give it +2/+0 until end of turn. I really like this card as a turn 1 play. It's also got a Mentor trigger on top of it with a pump ability as well that you can do multiple times. So very, very good. If your opponent doesn't kill this like immediately, it can just like take over the match in drafted and sealed. This will probably see a lot of standard play as well, thanks to its abilities. Definitely in a goblin deck, maybe in a mono red aggro deck, we don't really know. And of course, this is going to see some commander play in a goblin deck for sure as well. So just a great turn one play, great way to pump your entire board if you have the mana to dump into this, you know, and you have weaker creatures attacking in as well. So very good all around card here. Moving up, we've got Goblin Crater Maker, a 2-mana uncommon 2/2 Goblin Warrior. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it, choose 1, deals 2 damage to target creature, or destroy target colorless non-land permanent. That basically means destroy target Ugin, or Karn, or, you know, just destroy target artifacts. So this is a very good card for, like, Modern. Almost might see some play in Vintage or Legacy. This card's crazy powerful for those formats. I'm not sure where this will see play as far as in Standard. Probably going to see a lot of sideboard play, basically replacing a Braid. That's probably where it's going to be going. But I do think in Draft and Sealed it's probably okay. A 2-mana 2/2 is fine. And a 2-mana 2/2 that can actually deal indirect damage, like by sacrificing itself, is also good. There just aren't a lot of artifacts in the format right now in Draft and Sealed that really take advantage of the secondary ability here. So being able to just ping something on your opponent's side of the field is nice without actually having to interact with it through blocks. That's pretty good. So this is probably going to be a good card for that for Drafted and Sealed. But yeah, Standard, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, all of those other formats, this card is bonkers insane. Moving up, we've got Goblin Locksmith, a 2-mana 2/1 Goblin Rogue. It's a common. Whenever it attacks, creatures with Defender can't block this turn. A very narrow ability here. There's only a few cards with Defender in the format. It's also a 2/1, so it's going to trade with mostly everything, so it's kind of a bad card here. However, I will say that the art on this card is quite nice. Man, that's about it for me for this one. I'm not going to see any kind of play in Standard, Modern, Commander, anything like that, but it is nice to have some nice art on this, but I think it's probably terrible in Draft and Sealed as well. It's just a 2/1 that's just going to immediately trade with something, and that's not great. Moving on, we've got Gravitic Punch. This is a 4-mana common sorcery. Target creature you control deals combat damage, or deals damage equal to its power to target player. It's not combat damage, just damage. Also has Jumpstart here. Interesting card if you get into like a Golgari list maybe in your deck lists. You're probably going to see this more like an Is It list perhaps. I do think this card is interesting for the format, but I'm not too sure where this is going to see a lot of play. I'm probably just going to see some Draft and Seal play, and that's going to be very light. It's kind of very narrow, especially because it's a card that feels like it's really at home in a Gruul list, like a green-red list, instead of an Is It list or a Boros list, when that's the kind of the color pairs we're going for this particular Draft and Sealed environment. So this is a card that will see play, kind of, but not much. I don't think it's that great, honestly. I'm not going to see play in Standard, Modern, Commander, anything like that, but probably will be like maybe a one-off in your Draft and Sealed deck. It's just kind of expensive. It does have Jumpstart, so you can do it twice, so that's nice. But it's going to target player and not to like any target, so you can actually ping an opponent's creature down, which is kind of the point, I feel like, of this card, but, you know, whatever. Moving on here, we've got Hellkite Welp. This is a 5-mana 3/3 dragon, uncommon with flying. Whenever it attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature defending player controls. This is fine as a Draft and Sealed card for you. A 5-mana 3/3 flyer, you probably take those all day long, but having the caveat here of being able to ping an opponent's creature for 1, that's not bad. You know, if your opponent has lots of 1/1s or 2/1s like that locksmith we just saw earlier, then it can definitely deal with those. Also, just being a flyer in the mid to late game is just very good in Draft and Sealed, so always going to see play there. Not going to see any kind of play anywhere else. We've got Inescapable Blaze. This is a 6-mana uncommon instant. This spell can't be countered, and Inescapable Blaze deals 6 damage to any target. So, Banefire is an uncountable spell if you pay at least, I think, 5 mana for X. So it's a 6-mana deal 5 damage to any target, and it's uncounterable. Inescapable Blaze is 6 mana uncounterable for 6 damage, so 1 extra point of damage to any target. I feel like this is a better card if you, like, just want to spend the 6 mana for a spell here. So this is probably going to see a lot of standard play for me. I think it's very good against a lot of decks right now. I think it's very good against a lot of control, especially because it can't be countered, obviously. I'm not so sure about this seeing any kind of outside of standard play, probably not going to see any kind of modern play. But this will definitely see a lot of Draft and Sealed play because it's any target. So dealing 6 points of damage to a creature, a planeswalker, or an opponent's face. Very, very good in every single format as far as Drafted and Sealed goes. So You're going to pick into this because it's good removal in red. Love it for that. But yeah, I think this card is super good. It's very close to Banefire, if not just as good as Banefire, because most people, they just get to the 6 mana there where it's uncounterable, and then they cast it to do 5 points of damage. This is doing 1 extra point of damage, and it's uncounterable outright. So, awesome. really love this. Next up, we've got Lava Coil, a 2-mana uncommon sorcery. Deals 4 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So, this isn't Magma Spray, but it's still pretty good as far as a good removal spell in Draft Sealed and probably Standard. Definitely going to see some Standard play in a sideboard somewhere because of the exile ability. This is just very good removal for you in red in Izzet or in Boros for Draft and Sealed, so you're always going to see this and pick into it, hopefully, if you can, in your Draft and Sealed pool. Very good for those. Next up, we've got Legion Warboss, a 3-mana 2/2 rare Goblin Soldier with Mentor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. That creature gains haste until end of turn and attacks its combat if able. This is amazing. Basically, Goblin Rabble Master, honestly. But can actually pump your entire board state, not your entire board state, pump a particular creature whenever it attacks. So getting auras on this is not bad for Draft and Sealed. I do think this is basically an army maker in Draft and Sealed, so get this out early. If your opponent doesn't have removal for it, then you just win the game because you make so many 1/1s that they can't handle it, you know? So very good for that format. I do think as well, this card is very powerful for Standard in a mono red aggro list, and of course we'll see Standard or Commander play in a Goblin list as well. Not so sure about this seeing Modern play. The Mentor ability is interesting for Modern, but I do think that we just have Goblin Rabble Master there, and that's fine. But the Legion Warboss, definitely going to see Standard and Draft and Sealed play. Maniacal Rage, a 2-mana common aura. This is Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and can't block. This is probably okay. This is probably what you put on. You want to put on your Legion Warboss. In Draft and Sealed, this is good. So the only downside here is, of course, you can't block. And I think it's probably okay in a Boros list and an Izzet list, where all you're trying to do is just get in as much damage as possible. You're basically forcing your opponent to trade with that creature, and I think that's probably fine, especially because of the +2/+2 for 2. I think that's fine. I'm not going to see any kind of play elsewhere as far as Standard, Commander, or Modern, but will definitely be a good aura to get into in red in Draft and in Sealed. Moving on, we've got Maximize Velocity, a 1 red mana sorcery common. Target creature gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. It also has Jumpstart, so you can do this multiple times, so twice in a single match. I really like this card in Draft and Sealed. I think it's very good. Being able to kind of lay out your giant bomb and then, you know, give it haste and +1/+1 for the turn is very good. And being able to do that twice within a match is super good. So I think a 1 or 2 of in your Draft and Sealed list is probably fine in a Boros list or into an Izzet list. Besides that, I don't think this will see play in a Standard list, really, unless this is like an Izzet Wizards or Izzet, you know, spells list in Standard. Besides that, though, the art here, man, I really wanted this card to be like an actual creature, but sadly not. However, really do like this card for Draft and in Sealed. Moving on, we've got Ornery Goblin, a 2-mana 2/1 Goblin Warrior common. Whenever Ornery Goblin blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, Ornery Goblin deals 1 damage to that creature. So, very interesting. This is definitely a card that's super aggressive in Draft and in Sealed. You want to get into it quite early if you can. Might not see any kind of Standard play. It is interesting, though, that it does do points of damage before it actually assigns combat damage, which is nice. I do think this card is good for Draft and Sealed, but of course, not going to see any kind of play elsewhere. We've got Risk Factor here, a 3-mana rare instant. Target opponent may have Risk Factor, deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, you draw 3 cards. It also has Jumpstart, so in the mid to late game, the opponent's probably just going to have you draw cards, which is amazing. And in the early game, the opponent's just going to have you probably deal 4 damage to their face, which is very good as well. So I think this card is probably the best card as far as Jumpstart goes in Drafted and Sealed. It might even see some Standard play, just based on how the card is kind of centered. So turn 3, Risk Factor your opponent. They're probably just going to take 4 to the face because they're at 20 or 15 or something like that. And then like turn 7 in like the mid to late game, they're probably just going to have you like draw 3 cards because you know they might be burned down to like 4 or 5 life. So I think this card is very good. It's going to get a lot of use in Draft and Sealed. Definitely going to give you a lot of advantage if your opponent doesn't want to get burned. So this is just amazing. Of course, a lot of people are going to say it's not as good because it's giving your opponent like the illusion of choice, but both choices for your opponent are kind of bad. So I think this card is fine both ways. So going to see a lot of Standard play, probably a lot of Draft and Sealed plays, of course, as well, and maybe some Commander play too. Moving on, we've got Rubble Built Boar, a 4-mana 3/3 boar. This is a common. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This is not Drill Master, kind of how it was from the core set. It's on a 2 mana, and it doesn't do +2/+0 for that, so it's a little underdeveloped because it doesn't give like an extra ability. It's just +2/+0, which is kind of sad. It's nice as far as being like your 14th or 15th creature pick in your deck list, which is fine. But not going to see any kind of play elsewhere. I wish it gave it like +2/+0 in like haste, or +2/+0 and first strike. That would be perfect. Or +2/+0 and menace would be great as well. But it doesn't do any of that. It just gives it +2/+0, which means it's probably going to have that creature trade with something on your opponent's side of the field. And that's just not great if you're behind. We've got Runaway Steamkin, a 2 mana rare 1/1 elemental. Whenever you cast a red spell, if Runaway Steamkin has fewer than 3 +1/+1 counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Remove 3 +1/+1 counters from Runaway Steamkin and add 3 mana. This is a card that's going to see a ton of standard play for sure. There's also like a bunch of like infinite combos this card can do in Modern, which is interesting. I think this card is also very powerful in Draft and in Sealed if you get into a Boros list or an Izzet list for sure. Almost kind of a first pickable card because it's so aggressive, and it can turn into a 4/4 as well, which is very good. And of course you can always just, dump mana out of it if you really need to as well. So I think this card is very good in a lot of different formats. And if you see this in Draft and Sealed, definitely get into it because it's very powerful. Moving right along, we have Smelt Ward Minotaur, a 3 mana 2/3 uncommon Minotaur warrior. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target creature an opponent controls can't block this turn. Again, in an Izzet list, this might be very powerful, or it might just do nothing. But having a 3 mana 2/3 is not bad either way, so I don't think this is a terrible card. I think it's probably fine, especially in red, where red kind of lacks on toughness, and this is a fine card for that. I do think in Standard, this might see some weird brew around play for an Izzet deck, but probably not going to see any kind of play elsewhere. Maybe in a Commander list if you really want to see it somewhere. But yeah, Draft and Sealed, this is probably just fine. A good 3 mana 2/3, being able to make some of your opponent's creatures not be able to block if you're casting out instant and sorcery spells. Pretty good. Moving up, we've got Streetwire, a 5 mana enchantment uncommon. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample. This is kind of okay in Draft and Sealed. It's a little expensive, obviously. That's the biggest caveat here. Not gonna see any kind of play in Standard. This is probably a card meant for Commander only. But I think for Draft and Sealed, if you do get to this point and you have lots of big creatures on your opponent's on your side of the field, then this makes them even more of a threat, and it means that they're going to get in for trample damage, which is quite good. So it's kind of a card that, like, if you have a big bomb like draft pool, then this is a card to get into. But if not, then this is a card you probably just want to pass up because 5 mana for this is not great. Moving on, we've got Sure Strike here. A 2 mana common instant. Deals target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. I almost said deals damage, but it's a target creature. Very good card. Sure Strike's always a good card in Draft and Sealed. Fantastic combat trick, being offensive or defensive. First strike on top of this ability here is what makes this one of the best combat tricks for red right now. So always going to get into this in Draft and Sealed, and might see some, borderline brew around play in Standard, of course, as well. Moving up here, we have Torch Courier. This is a 1 red mana 1/1 goblin with haste. Sacrifice Torch Courier. Another target creature gains haste until end of turn. This is a very good goblin for you for Draft and Sealed because it's early game damage, but it's also mid to late game hasty damage with another creature on your side of the field. So very, very good for Boros, very good for Izzet, and probably will see some play in Standard because, again, it's a 1/1 hasty that gives something else haste, and that's amazing for like really close matches where you're almost like, you're just barely behind, and if you had a hasty attacker, like giving this courier, like giving another creature haste, like Arclight Phoenix, it would be perfect. So I think this card is very good for Draft Sealed, and we'll see lots of Standard play as far as brew around play. And, it'll probably see play in a Goblin Commander deck as well. And I think this is the last red card here. This is Wojak Bodyguard, a 3 mana 3/3 human soldier with a mentor, and it can't attack or block alone. So this is fine. I think it's quite powerful for sure. My only problem here, of course, is that it can't attack or block alone. But it's, for 3 mana, a 3/3 with mentor like this, I think it's probably fine, especially with the mentor trigger being on top of this. This is a card you don't want to attack alone anyway, which I think is perfectly feasible for Draft and Sealed. So this would be fine as a common card for Draft and Sealed. Probably not good enough for Standard, and probably not good enough for Commander. So, but it's probably just fine for Draft and in Sealed again. But that's going to do it for the red cards, guys. We'll get into the green cards right after this video, into the next video. But if you like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll have the pre-release content very, very soon. And then they draft and sealed guide talking about like the 5 best uncommons and commons for each color and guild. So that way, you know, you guys can kind of go into your draft pools and into your sealed and pre-release with all the information possible to make good decisions on your deck building decisions. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Love you all, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more awesome MTG content just like this. And make sure to tap the bell icon to be notified whenever a video is made live. If you want to keep watching content, here are 2 more videos for you. This video and many others are sponsored by MTGO Traders and Cape Fear Games. Buy and sell digital singles to build your online collection today with MTGO Traders, and get your paper singles, accessories, and much more from Cape Fear Games. Whatever your Magic needs, both places have you covered.